Now let's talk about football. In Saudi Arabia, Riyadh is betting big on football. The kingdom wants to become a major football hub, and it's been taking a lot of steps in that direction. The latest news is that some clubs will be privatized. This includes big names like this year's top three: Al Ittihad, Al Nassr and Al Hilal. You may know Al Nassr as the club of Portuguese superstar Cristiano Ronaldo. The other clubs are looking to attract top players too. France striker Karim Benzema is on his way to champions Al Ittihad. Al Hilal is desperately trying to woo Argentine legend Lionel Messi. The clubs have been offering extremely lucrative contracts to entice players. All this as part of the Saudi government's Vision 2030. Here's more.
Next season, Saudi Arabian football is getting a new star. French striker Karim Benzema. He's going to ply his trade at Al Ittihad, the current champions of the Saudi Pro League. Benzema will take the field against his former Real Madrid teammate Cristiano Ronaldo. Ronaldo also plays in the Saudi Pro League for the club Al Nassr. He captained the side to a second-place finish in the recently concluded season. But Benzema versus Ronaldo might not be the most exciting prospect next season. There's a possibility of football's greatest rivalry reigniting on Saudi soil. Cristiano Ronaldo versus Lionel Messi. That's right, the Argentine legend may also make his way to Saudi Arabia. He's aggressively being courted by last season's third-ranked club, Al Hilal. And by aggressively, we mean Al Hilal is prepared to break the bank. The latest reports say the Riyadh-based club has offered almost $1.3 billion. $1.3 billion. This is for a 2-year contract. That still means Messi could make over $500 million a year in the Saudi Pro League. His pay would eclipse Ronaldo's, who reportedly makes about $260 million a year. The Portuguese frontman is currently the highest-paid footballer in the world. And if Messi accepts Al Hilal's reported offer, he'll leave Ronaldo far behind. But Ronaldo may not mind. He's been pitching the SPL for a while now.
If they're coming big players, big names, young players, old players, they are very welcome, because if that happens, the league will improve.
Ronaldo has even talked up the future of the league, how it's heading from humble beginnings towards big things.
To speak about the league, I think the league is very good, but I think we have many opportunities to still grow. And in my opinion, if they continue to do it, the work that they want to do it for the next 5 years, I think the Saudi league can be in the 5th in the world.
He says the Saudi league can be the 5th best league in the world. That's ambitious, but it's what the country is aiming to do, or rather what Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is trying to do. The Saudi Crown Prince has a vision, Vision 2030. He wants to diversify the Saudi economy by the end of this decade. From investing in information technology to services, MBS wants to create a vibrant economy, one not solely dependent on oil, and sports is a big part of that vision. Saudi Arabia has invested in Formula One and golf as well, but the biggest sport around the world is football. So now Riyadh is focusing on the beautiful game. Attracting players with absurd pay packages is just one strategy. There's also privatization. Multiple clubs, including last season's top 3, are getting privatized. As the first step, they've been taken over by Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund. It's called the Public Investment Fund. This allows companies and development agencies to invest in and take over the clubs. Once this happens, the clubs are expected to start bringing in money. Riyadh's aim is for the Saudi Pro League's revenue to quadruple by 2030. The goal is for the SPL to make $480 million annually. That's less than what Messi would reportedly make alone. Which proves it isn't about making the SPL profitable, just competitive. The plan seems to be, once these legends retire from Saudi Arabia, they'll leave behind a globally competitive football ecosystem, one that'll eventually, years later, become a pillar of the Saudi economy.
The race for the White House is heating up. I know elections are still 17 months away in the United States, but that's America for you. The Republican field is especially crowded. There are daily accusations, a lot of insults, and also some falsehoods. Let me introduce Nikki Haley. She's a US politician of Indian origin, also running for the Republican nomination. And on Monday, she posted this on social media. She says if we want to be serious about saving the environment, we need to confront India and China. They're some of the biggest polluters. Well, in no time, there was backlash. Indian users on Twitter called her out. She was accused of lying about pollution. So let's look at what the reality is. You need to understand that pollution has a time lag. What you emit today affects us years later, maybe 10 or 20 years down the line. This is why experts talk about historical pollution. Don't just look at the current data, also look at the decades before. And what does that data tell us? Since 1850, the US is responsible for 20% of all carbon dioxide emissions. China is second with 11%. Russia is 7% and Brazil 5%. So what about India? India makes up just 3.4% of the total. The rank is 7th. This data tells the real story of pollution. The climate change you see around is because of historical pollution. And who contributed to that? The United States, with a 20% share. Let's also look at another data set. Per capita emissions. It's easy for countries with smaller populations to reduce emissions. Less people, less emissions. So let's consider the per capita data. Qatar leads the list with 37 tons of carbon dioxide. That's 37 tons per citizen. What about the United States? The US emits around 15 tons per capita. And India, just 1.9 tons. Imagine that. America's per capita emission is 7 times higher than India's. Yet, Nikki Haley has the audacity to blame India. Even China is better than the US. Their per capita emission is around 7 tons. Most experts also talk about exported emissions. What does that mean? You keep hearing US officials talk about reducing pollution. They do that by exporting manufacturing. Instead of building factories in the US, they build it elsewhere, like in China or Vietnam, even India. One study found that multinational companies make up 20% of all emissions. Also remember that 1/3 of all MNCs are American. Put 2 and 2 together, and what do you get? More pollution by the US. What I just explained isn't new information. It's known to policymakers across the world. In fact, it is recognized in international law. We call it CBDR, Common but Differentiated Responsibilities. Means all countries are responsible for tackling environmental destruction. But there's a catch. They are not equally responsible. Historically, bigger polluters like the US must take the lead. They must spend more. Unfortunately, Nikki Haley missed this memo. Looks like her whole party did. Former President Donald Trump did the same thing. In 2020, he accused India of having filthy air. His words, filthy. It's part of a bigger trend in US politics. You blame and preach to India while running for office, but once in the White House, you change the strategy. You realize India is key to America's interests, and Joe Biden is no different. While running for office, he released a policy paper. It criticized India's Citizen Amendment Act, or the CAA. It also talked about the situation in Kashmir. But cut to 2023, he's a different man. On Monday, a White House spokesman was asked about the health of India's democracy. Listen to the response.
India is a vibrant democracy. Anybody that happens to go to New Delhi can see that for themselves. And certainly, I would expect that the strength and health of democratic institutions will be part of the discussion.
India is a vibrant democracy. Not that America's opinion matters, but at least it's not unsolicited criticism. US politicians must learn to keep politics within their borders. Not like they have a shortage of issues. Gun violence, sky-high medicine costs, abortion rights, inflation. These are all issues that affect American citizens. Maybe discuss those next time. Don't turn other countries into your political punching bags. Will AI take your job? If only we got a penny every time someone asked this question. Well, today we are asking again because a new report has revealed some worrying data. It was prepared by a global HR firm, and what does the report say? That artificial intelligence caused 3,900 layoffs in May. Now that's a big headline. Almost 4,000 jobs taken away by AI. What sort of jobs are we talking about? All kinds, spread across industries. IBM said last month that they would slash 6,800 jobs. CBS News fired 2 copywriters, and media company CNET laid off reporters. AI is now writing articles for them, so the obvious question is, should you be worried? First, let's have a look at this data. It covers only US companies. In the month of May, they announced more than 80,000 job cuts. Out of this, 3,900 were because of AI. If you do the maths, that's around 5% of all cuts. It is certainly high, but look at the other factors as well. 19,000 jobs were lost because the business shut down. Market conditions led to 14,000 job cuts, and 13,000 job cuts were attributed to no reason. What does that tell you? The overall economic outlook is gloomy. The same report says that consumer confidence is at a 6-month low. Companies are putting the brakes on hiring, and that's not because of AI. That's because their business has flatlined. I have more numbers for you. From January to May, the US lost 417,000 jobs. It's the highest since the 2008 recession. So blaming artificial intelligence is not the solution. We need to stimulate the economy. We need to boost consumer spending. If not, companies will keep trimming their workforce. They will keep swapping paid employees for unpaid AI. Let's also look at the long term. Is the risk of an AI takeover real? Goldman Sachs had a worrying assessment recently. They said 300 million jobs could be lost to AI. Now that's a lot. AI could take over a quarter of all work tasks in Europe and the US. Which jobs would be worst hit? 46% tasks in the administrative field would be affected. So would 44% tasks in the legal field. The least affected will be physical jobs, say construction or maintenance. It's important to take this report with a pinch of salt. Yes, jobs will be lost, but new ones will also be created. Around 60% people today are doing jobs that did not exist in 1940. What does that tell you? That the job market keeps evolving. Current assessments are based on speculation about AI. Nobody knows how this technology will pan out. So 300 million could be the worst case scenario, or maybe it could be an impossible scenario. Always remember that. Another factor to note is productivity. Companies will switch to AI only if it's profitable, if the AI is cheaper and better. But what if humans team up with AI? What if the human-AI partnership is more efficient than either of them working alone? We already have evidence. A recent study found that 14% employees who used ChatGPT saw an increase in productivity. Some workers finished their tasks 35% faster. My point is, it's not a zero-sum game. It doesn't have to be human or artificial intelligence. It can be humans and AI. But to do that, the economy needs to be robust. If companies are struggling to survive, they will cut corners. They will jump at the chance of reducing costs. If that means AI, then so be it. So this report about 4,000 job cuts isn't just a commentary on AI. It's also a commentary on the global economy. Have you heard of a phenomenon called lying flat? It's a recent trend among the Chinese youth. People are so flat out tired of working that they just lie down on a couch, on grass, frankly anywhere. And they simply lie there doing nothing. They actively chalk out time to be idle. Because in China, idleness is a form of rebellion, a way to push back against the damaging and inescapable burnout culture, where people work long hours, brave endless competition, and push their bodies to the breaking point. Because this is the reality of work culture in China. This is a Chinese woman. traveling on a Shanghai subway with an intravenous or IV drip inserted in her hand. She's holding a bottle of fluid over her head on the way to work. Why? Because she's unwell, but she can't take a day off, much like many other workers in China. And they are all exhausted. Why won't they be? There's record unemployment in China. 1 in 5 young people in Chinese cities are out of work. The job market is shrinking, pay scale is falling. So people who are employed are fiercely holding on to their jobs, doing their best to stay on board no matter what. The result? A difficult work commute with a banana bag over the head and a needle in the arm. It is safe to say that China's work culture is toxic. The irony is, it's not without a fan following. Remember when Chinese tech tycoon Jack Ma famously called the 996 a blessing? 996 is their so-called work culture, where people work 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. Employers have enforced this across sectors for the longest time. In 2021, Chinese authorities took action against the 996. They issued a stern reminder to companies, saying that such punishing work schedules are illegal. It was China's clearest warning against the toxic culture of overwork. Yet, the situation remains grim. According to China's labor laws, a standard workday is 8 hours, with a maximum of 44 hours a week. Any work beyond that requires extra pay for overtime. But this has not been well enforced. In fact, in many of the country's biggest firms, employees aren't compensated for working overtime. The government takes a hands-off approach, and a culture of overwork thrives, all while oozing toxicity, which is inextricably tied to the new age narrative of hustle culture. It promotes the idea that there's always more to strive for, more money to make, a bigger title to chase, or a supposed higher ceiling to break. So working bees must do more, be more, and never say never. But don't be mistaken, this unhealthy culture is not limited to China. Studies show that workers around the world put in an average of 9.2 hours of unpaid overtime per week. Gambia, Mongolia, Maldives, Qatar, and India are some of the most overworked countries in the world. Here, work weeks stretch up to over 48 hours. South Koreans work an average of over 1,900 hours a year. That's nearly 200 more than the OECD average. Meanwhile, neighboring Japan averaged over 1,600 hours. Both these countries are notorious for their tough work culture. So much so, death by overwork is widely reported phenomenon here. Yes, people are literally working themselves to death. And if not death, then adverse lifelong health problems like body aches, stroke, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, anxiety, and even depression. Work cultures view people as replaceable machine parts who toil in a dehumanized workplace. And yet, we continue to rise and grind, move fast and break things and hustle harder. We unknowingly join the cult of overwork, only for it to be a fast track to burnout and sometimes even death. Work till you drop has become our life motto, but it's time to change that. We need to lift our nose from the grindstone and take a long, hard look at our sweatshop, where glorification of overwork hails supreme, and we are told our work is our worth. Overwork may be the price we pay for success, but at what cost? And now it's time for Vantage shots, images that tell the story. Starting with Canada, wildfires are burning in the province of British Columbia. Officials say Canada is on track to witness its worst wildfire season. In Greece, divers are trying to pull out what they call ghost nets from the depths of the Aegean Sea. Thousands of fish have died because of these nets. And in Argentina, a football match turned into a display of fireworks in its final moments. This left the commentators and the audience stunned. And finally, what makes June 6th significant? We're taking you back in history. Today, India marks the 39th anniversary of the Operation Blue Star. On this day in 1984, the Operation Blue Star was carried out to eliminate militants who had taken shelter in the Golden Temple. This happened in the Indian state of Punjab. The operation was ordered by India's then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. She was assassinated later in 1984. We leave you with this. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.
No, no se puede creer lo que está ocurriendo ahora en el estadio. No, no se puede creer. Bienvenidos a la Primera Nacional del fútbol argentino, señores.
Pero no terminó.
Y se viene el Deportivo Maipú. Y este es Herrera. 30 segundos finales, centro al área. Le va a quedar la pelota a Paredes. Este es Paredes. ¡Vamos, señores! ¡Ha ganado al Deportivo Maipú aquí en Mendoza! Extraordinaria fiesta.